Wherever a person prays, wherever a person prays, he should merge in multitude, totality of multitude. That's from Zohar 1:160b. One of the biggest challenges in my tshuva, returning to Yiddishkeit, has definitely been how to adapt practices that have been designed from the beginning to be practiced in physical community. How to adapt those practices to mostly work for me when I'm by myself. I don't really want to get into the details of why that's the situation of my life, but needless to say that this is the way that I'm choosing to live. And I want to find ways to still feel like my neshama is being nourished and connected without physically being in community with other Jewish people. So in our teachings, this really does come up quite a lot, the idea that we are community orientated. We don't really have a monastic tradition, and all humans are really expected to partake in the community in some capacity. And so how do I go about my day? So one of the first obstacles that I really faced was, I'd been doing a little bit of study and then decided, from what I was reading, it was like, I can't really study Kabbalah, like Jewish mysticism, and not be in some way practicing Judaism. So I really decided I'm going to have to try to daven. Something that I'd never really wanted or had any particular desire to do. And I was going to have to just try it and see where I could get with it. And there really were a lot of helpful things on the way to quite quickly opening up, I guess, my feeling space, as Reb Zellman might call it, and connect that to the liturgy, at least some parts of it, enough to make me want to keep trying and deepening. But really one of the instant problems that I faced was that I wasn't in a minyan. So I'd never learnt Kaddish, and it was one of the first things that I wanted to learn because I was finally starting to grieve my granny who had died or had been killed 20 years earlier, and I'd never said these prayers before, thought about her associated with the tradition. And she was a very proudly Jewish person from, I believe, a family that really had that deeply instilled in them. And so I wanted to say Kaddish, but I wasn't in a minyan, and I wasn't really planning on joining a minyan. And so I had to find ways to enable myself to get over the guilt of being told, you can't do it this way. You have to have a minyan physically around you. And so I started finding my own ways to make these things work. And I'm not breaking rules for the sake of it or to be rebellious. Like, I'm finding what works for me, and I have to make my judgments about whether I think something is maybe disrespectful to the tradition, to the teachings that have been passed down. But increasingly, I find that's not the case. I just think a lot of rules you really need to be looking at the context of when and where they came about and why someone would think this is the way to do this. And quite often you realize it doesn't make sense today. And we need to take the words and the spirit of the words and apply them to our own lives rather than the sort of like word by word peshat rule that has been passed down. And probably, I mean, we argue about, you say almost everything, but some things we don't argue about because we say, I have a line there. I don't argue about that. For some people, that line is very, very close to what their opinion is already. So you can't really open them up to different interpretations, in spite of the fact that it really is a part of our tradition to argue and discuss and always be looking for deeper meaning in our words that are passed down. So a lot of it is just getting past that and to realizing I can have a davening practice, I can have Yiddishkeit in general that doesn't have physical community around it. So, and like I say in the last video, I say again now, I'm working on it. It's not perfect, but for me, it's actually working really well. I mean, I miss community at times, but it's kind of a fictional community because I've never really had community for a very, very brief time, maybe when I was living in South Africa with family, with extended family. But besides that, I've never been in Jewish community in any satisfying way. And so I don't even really know what I'm missing, which is a strange thing to say, but you can still miss it because you can paint a picture in your mind that is beautiful and will make you feel more connected. And I don't even know if it's out there. Oh, just realized I didn't have the light on. That would have been better. So, this line in the Zohar, he should merge in multitudes. These are the notes from Daniel Matt. This is his translation. He should include himself with the entire community and formulate his prayer in the plural. Remember us, not the singular, remember me, so as not to call attention to himself and make himself vulnerable to demonic forces who can expose his sins. And then he says, see Babylonian Talmud, Berachot 30a. Abai said, a person should always associate himself with the community. Samuel said, a person should never exclude himself from the entire community. It really is something that is passed on l'dor v'dor, and I totally understand the reasoning behind it. I think for almost all people, it is the correct approach. I am not all people, and I'm finding something that can work for me, and I hope that I'll be able to help you as well in getting where you need to be in your feeling of Jewish and human, generally, connection. Shalom.